We are so excited to invite you to help us love big in our city this year as we celebrate Easter online at City Church.
And we're so excited for every first-time guest that joins us online at that service. We're going to donate $100 in your honor to our friends at Crestview Elementary to help meet a specific need in this unique season that we're in, up to $3,000. And our Easter service is going to be April 12th at 10:30 a.m. on our online platform, and we can't wait to see you there.
Hi, I'm Michelle and I'm the City Kids Director here at City Church. We care about your kids and we want to invest in them even when they can't be in a City Kids class. So each week we post a video lesson on our website on the City Kids page just for them. It also has some activities that you can do with them throughout the week, so go check it out. And now, your host Maddie.
What's up, guys? Welcome to City Church Online. My name is Maddie. Thank you so much for tuning in today. So awesome to have you with us. So usually we do all forms of communication through our Connect cards, but in this season, if you would like to connect with us, you can click the Connect card button over onto the right of your screen, or feel free to message us on any of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. We also just want to take a minute to say thank you so much to everybody that gives at City Church. You are not just giving to a church, you are giving through a church. We are so grateful for your radical generosity. If you would like to be a part of what God is doing financially at City Church, feel free to click the Give button, also to the right of your screen, or you can text GIVE to the number below. Thank you so much in advance. Growth Track, some updates for you guys. We have got Growth Track still going on. If you would like to get involved with that, this is our Next Steps class. You can learn a little bit more about City Church, who we are, what we're all about, also offered online. So feel free to let us know if you would like some more information on that, and we will get that to you. City groups, this is how we connect and stay connected at City Church. We are still having city groups meeting throughout the week. We have Sundays, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. We are also offering online options for this as well. So please feel free to let us know if you would like to get connected with that. Just because we are socially distancing right now does not mean we have to relationally distance. So please let us know. We'd love to encourage you and get you connected in that way. Lastly, City Church is still in the city and for the city. Please feel free to reach out with any ideas, needs, opportunities that you know of so we can serve our community together. Thank you so much for being here. Enjoy the service.
My favorite part about this song is not only where it talks about Jesus being the king of my heart, but also the mountain that I can run to, and that's exactly what my heart needs in this time of uncertainty and chaos. Let the king of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from, always my song. Let the king of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life, always my song. You are good, good, oh, you are good, good, oh, you are good, good. singing that. You're never gonna let me down. 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 You're never gonna let me
Hey, before we start this song, I wanted us to read together Psalms 23. So you in front of the screen there, if you'll read it with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Come on, let's sing it together. Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves a 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. When I was your foe, after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Reckless love of God, oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found. Leaves at 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
Hey guys, welcome to City Church Online. My name is Drake, and I am so glad that you're tuning in and joining us today. Hey, listen, if you are a first-time guest with us today, I want you to take a moment, fill out that digital connection card on the platform that you're watching from, and we would love to donate $5 in your honor to a feeding center that we already support in the Philippines, just for you showing up and filling that out. And listen, we're not going to mess with your information. There's even a button in there that says, hey, I don't want to be contacted, thanks but no thanks, but we would love to know that you tuned in and donate that money in your honor just for showing up. And listen, if you're tuning in, make sure you're using that chat bar on the side just to interact and be a part of community as we do this thing together. So excited for the conversation today. We are a week away from celebrating Easter, and today's conversation, I believe, is going to be super helpful for where we are right now, even in the middle of the coronavirus lockdown. So here's my question for you. How many of you feel like influencers today? I'm talking right now in the middle of lockdown. How many of you feel like you're influential? You see, we're in this weird season where we're on lockdown and we're unable to be around people. And so I imagine that part of your influence has diminished, or at least you feel that way. And so last week, I challenged you and encouraged you to embrace the big idea that you are invaluable. And as hard as that is to believe sometimes when we're separated and alone, it doesn't change the reality and the fact that you are invaluable. Today's conversation goes hand in hand with that one, and it is this, that you are influential. And in a season when we're stuck at home and we're not around people, I think this can be a hard one to believe, but I hope I can bring out the best in you today, that I believe that you and I, man, we're influencers, and God has big, big plans, even in this season. So you might be sitting at home watching this thing and thinking, you know what, I'm normally an influencer, I'm normally influential, but to be honest right now, a lot of my influence is simply limited because of everything going on. Or you're on the other end of the spectrum and you're like, Drake, man, I struggle to feel like I'm influential on a good day, much less in the middle of isolation and lockdown. And so no matter where you find yourself on the spectrum, my goal today is to help you see yourself as God sees you. And more specifically, to see the opportunities around you in this unique season that God plans to use you in. And so 4 identity points that we've looked at over the last couple of weeks that I want to revisit with you as we get into this thing. What are we? Number 1, I am invited. Everyone say, I'm invited. I'm invited into God's family. Number 2, I am invested. Everyone say, I'm invested. Just checking. You got it? Okay, good. I'm invested in God's mission. Number 3, I'm invaluable. Everyone say, I'm invaluable. Everyone is a gift. Everyone is gifted, and the thing we're parking on today is I am influential. Everyone say, I'm influential. Man, you are so influential you don't even know. Now, here's the big idea. If you're taking notes, man, you got to get this in your heart. You got to get this in your mind so that we remember the power and the impact of what God could do in and through us in this season, and it's this. You have no idea how one conversation, one word of encouragement, or one expression of love might change someone's life. You have no idea how one word, one moment, one generous expression of love in the life of someone else could change everything for them. Now, the problem that you and I run into when we start talking about influence is that culture typically associates influence with a lot of people and with a big following and celebrity status and YouTube fame and lots of follows on social media. And what's ironic about that is that we acknowledge that and we see that and we probably have been influenced by a lot of cultural celebrities. But at the same time, most of our stories have been shaped by people who have influenced us in small ways. People's names who would never be on the top 100 charts or in a book or somewhere where people would say, oh man, you remember that guy? But we have lots of influential stories. And odds are, if you're like me, you have stories of influence that fall both in the positive and the negative category. Here's what I mean, that you maybe received some small investments from a coach who believed in you, or a teacher who brought out the best in you, or some parents who believed in you and invested and constantly poured into you and gave you every opportunity to succeed, or maybe some grandparents that were always there for you, or a peer group that supported you. You have some small investments from different people in your life who helped shape the story of who you are today. And odds are, if you're like me, you have a similar story on the other side of some people who were in your life and they didn't think or they didn't realize that they had influence in your life. And so they said some things or they did some things that negatively impacted you, and they didn't think about it or realize it because they assumed they did not have any influence. You see, the conversation we're having today carries a really big weight on both sides. Not only is there incredible potential for positive impact in the lives of others, but I believe if we miss this and we take it for granted, that the consequences of not recognizing that we're influential in the lives of others could be really detrimental to their stories moving forward. And so here's the deal. No matter where you are on your spiritual journey, listen, if you're not a follower of Jesus, you are loved, safe, and welcome in this community, and we're so glad you're here. And we want to meet you where you are and help you take some next steps. I hope today is encouraging and helpful to you. And if you are a follower of Jesus, this conversation goes way beyond encouraging someone. I want you to hear this. Jesus wants to work in and through you to do in the lives of others what he has already done in you. Remember that you're not just invited into God's family, but you're invited to participate in the mission of God's family. And so here's the challenge. The lie that you and I typically believe, or at least that we're pitched consistently, is that influence typically starts with platform. And what that means is that I've got to work to create a platform. If I want to be influential, I've got to work to create a platform. And then and only then, when I hit X amount of followers or I hit whatever goal I think I have to have, then I can be influential. But you and I know at the deep parts of our soul that's simply not true. But rather, this is the reality that true and lasting influence always starts with people, not a platform. So let me ask you a question. Who do you think influenced the start of City Church, this thing called City Church that we're getting the privilege of being a part of? Who do you think influenced that? You might, if you knew our story, you might say, Drake, it was you and your wife, Danielle, and a small team of people who influenced the start of City Church. And if that was your answer, you'd be totally right. That's absolutely a true statement. But can I just tell you that that's terribly incomplete? And if I had the time, I've got thousands of stories and people and moments that God has used in my life to influence the birth and the start and the existence of what we get to experience as City Church today. And I don't have time to go through all of that, but I want to just rewind really fast so you can see the power of influence. All the way back to when I was 15 years old. I wasn't a follower of Jesus. I didn't grow up in church. I didn't care about church. I wasn't looking for it. In fact, it was really boring and I wanted nothing to do with it. And I found myself dating this new girl. Her name was Danielle. Apparently, I have a thing for Danielles. And I was dating this girl, and her dad, I don't even remember his name. Really big dude. I remember he was like this tall, maybe even taller. And I remember that he wasn't ever like mean or anything to me, but I think, just loving me and protecting his daughter, he said, hey, listen, you can date my daughter, but you can only see her at church. And all of a sudden, I found myself really interested in going to church. And so I started going to church, not for any of the right reasons other than to be with my girlfriend, but all of a sudden I found myself around some people who said they had a relationship with Jesus and they lived like it and they loved like it. And it wasn't long before I started to understand that Jesus wasn't inviting me into religion, but he was inviting me into a relationship with himself. And it wasn't long after that I gave my life to Jesus. And man, he changed everything. And my whole life shifted at that moment. And so you could say that it was the influence of this dad, that I don't even know his name today, that was a part of influencing the start of City Church. Because if he wouldn't have made me go to church to see his daughter, I might not have ever met Jesus. And if I would have met Jesus, I would not be standing here today talking to you. Now, if you would go back and ask that guy, hey, what do you think about this kid? He ever going to be a pastor and start a church in Boulder, Colorado? He would have laughed in your face and said, no way. But here's what I want you to understand, that influence isn't always obvious, and it isn't always instant, but here's the reality, that just because you don't see the fruit of your investment in influence doesn't mean that the seed didn't take root. God was doing something in my life that man could have never seen in the moment. Now here's another example for you, okay? Easter is next weekend. I don't know if you knew it, but we get to celebrate Easter next weekend, and we're having our online Easter service at 10:30 a.m. Listen, I know we're tuned in at 4 right now, but do not show up at 4 o'clock next week because no one will be here. 10:30 a.m., our Easter online live service is happening, and here's what I'm going to challenge you to do today. This week, I'm going to ask you to invite 3 people to join you online for Easter at City Church, and you might be freaked out. Don't worry, we're going to get to that point, but here's what I want to ask. Are you a failure if you invite 3 people this week and they all tell you no? The answer is absolutely not. Why? Because the goal is not to get people to an Easter service. The goal is to get them where? To Jesus. And they might not come to a service, but you have no idea how God could use a simple invitation to plant a seed in someone's heart that you care, and the way that you love and the way that you carry yourself, all of a sudden it starts to do something in them that you might not see immediately, but don't undervalue what God could do in a moment. So today, with the time that we have left, I want to go to John chapter 4 and share with you a story of one of the most unlikely influencers in the entire New Testament. Jesus was on a trip, and as he's traveling, he's going to go through a town called Samaria. And you have to understand, this is a big deal because most Jews would go around Samaria, even though it added to their trip. They would go around it because this town was full of people that the Jews despised. These people they considered less than human. They were worse than dogs. They were half-breed Jews. And so Jews wanted nothing to do with Samaritans. So for Jesus to go through this town at all is incredible. But then he takes a break, takes a breather at a well, and here's what happens, picking up in verse 9. A woman shows up, and she's coming to draw water from the well, and watch what happens in verse 9. The woman was surprised when Jesus speaks to her. And so Jesus opens up a conversation, and this is mind-blowing. Because first of all, women were undervalued in this culture regardless of where they were from. But for Jesus to be speaking to a Samaritan woman was absolutely unacceptable. And so in the moment that he speaks to her, he dignifies her. And so here's her response. The woman was surprised because no one would ever talk to her. For Jews refused to have anything to do with Samaritans. She said to Jesus, "You're a Jew, and I'm a Samaritan woman. Why are you asking me for a drink?" So Jesus asked her for some water, and in verse 10, Jesus replies to her. He says, "If you only knew the gift God has for you and who you are speaking to, you would ask me, and I would give you living water." In verse 11, she responds, "But sir, you don't have a rope or a bucket." She's not quite picking up what Jesus is laying down. And she said, "This well is very deep. Where are you going to get this living water?" Watch what Jesus says in verse 13. Jesus replied to her, "Anyone who drinks from this water," he's talking about the well, "will soon be thirsty again. But those who drink the water I will give will never be thirsty again. It becomes a fresh, bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life." And in verse 15, the woman responds, "Please, sir, give me this water. Then I'll never be thirsty again, and I won't have to come back here with my bucket to get water." She hasn't quite figured out what Jesus is saying yet, but she's still pumped about the invitation. And then in verse 16, Jesus responds to her. He said, "Hey, why don't you go and get your husband?" And she says, I don't have a husband." And Jesus said, "You're right. You don't have a husband, for you've had 5 husbands. And you aren't even married to the man that you're living with now." And I love her response to this in verse 19. She says, "Sir, you must be a prophet." Like, oh, snap. And I need you to understand, listen, Jesus knew everything about this woman before they started this conversation. He's intentionally engaging. And she's been divorced 5 times, and she's shacking up with somebody right now. And maybe today, that might raise some eyebrows in our culture, but man, in this moment, she has a reputation. She is completely shunned in this city. She is the worst of the worst. Everyone is whispering about her. She has a town reputation. But I need you to understand that Jesus intentionally engages her in this moment, and he doesn't see an immoral woman, if you will, but rather he sees a miracle waiting to happen. And in the back of her mind, she's thinking, man, why would a Jewish man speak to me, and how is it that he knows everything about me? In verse 28, watch what happens. The woman leaves her water jar beside the well, and she runs back to the village, and she tells everyone, "Come and see a man who told me everything I ever did." Now remember her reputation. No one would have listened to her. She has no social status. But she says, could this possibly be the Messiah? They had heard about God sending this Messiah to save us and bring us back into relationship with God. In verse 30, watch what happens. So the people came streaming from the village to see him. Here's the point. No matter what your story looks like today, no matter how good or bad you think you are, Jesus can use you in someone else's life. Man, this broken, messed up, immoral woman in the moment who's had really difficult relationships, clearly, she immediately, because of Jesus, becomes an influencer. And here's what that tells me, and I hope it tells you, is that you don't have to have it all together to influence someone toward Jesus. I think we get stuck sometimes and we think, I got to have degrees and a couple verses memorized, and I got to have my life all fixed up, and I got to get kind of shiny on the outside in order to be a positive influencer. Man, this woman is proof that all you have to know, hear me friends, you just have to know who Jesus is and care about the people around you. And Jesus can use you. You just have to care. Hear me on this. You don't need 4,000 followers and a platform to be influential. You just need to care about the person in front of you. And if you and I can do that, God can use us to change the world around us. Why? Because you are an influencer. One of the influencers that I've been watching for a while, her name is Maddie. She's a part of our team and a part of our church, and I've been watching her invest in her friends, and it's amazing to watch. It really is. But I called one of her friends, Lauren, the other day, and I said, Lauren, why don't you tell me a little bit about, like, what is it about Maddie in the way that she's influenced you that has brought you to a place where you are today? And Lauren started to share her story of, like, hey, me and Maddie, we were roommates and we were living together. We didn't know each other that well, but at one point our stories came up and we kind of got to talk about our spiritual journeys, and that started just an open door, if you will. And Maddie had invited me to church a couple of times, but I typically just said no. And then all of a sudden I started going through a rough season. And Maddie invited me to church again, and so I decided to go with her, and that started some more conversations. And here's what Lauren said. She said, what I loved about Maddie is that she was always available. I could ask her any questions, and we could have intelligent, good conversations without me being judged or feeling put down. And she also said that Maddie was incredibly transparent. She didn't pretend like she had everything together. But at the same time, Lauren said, I would watch her as she continued to get more involved in City Church and began to serve others more. I watched her mood continue to change, and she said she looked like her best self, and she was where she was meant to be. And she was really living out what she believed, and she was loving in big ways. And Lauren said, as I watched her, I wanted that. And Lauren ended our conversation by saying that Maddie was an open door in my spiritual journey. And I didn't have to enter it, but I knew I could. Now, what's amazing about Lauren's story is that she gave her life to Jesus last fall, and Maddie had the privilege of baptizing her in Boulder Creek, and we got to celebrate because of Maddie's consistent investment in the life of Lauren. God used her to see Lauren come into relationship with God, and her life has changed. It's an amazing, amazing story of small influence that goes a long way because God could use anything. And let me show you what Jesus says after this, Matthew 9. Jesus responds to his disciples because they got back and they're kind of shocked that he's talking to a woman. In Matthew 9, Jesus says, hey, you guys have heard the saying that 4 months come between planting and harvest. And Jesus says, but I say to you, wake up and look around because the fields are already ripe for the harvest. He's using a metaphor to help them understand how people's hearts are ready to come into relationship with himself. And in Matthew 9, he extends that in a different parallel passage. He says that not only are the fields ripe for the harvest, but the laborers are few. He says that's the problem. The fields are ready, but the laborers are few. Our city is ready, but the laborers are few. People are ready, but we could say the influencers are few. Don't let the culture around you rob you of your calling to be an influencer. It doesn't start with platform. It starts with the person right in front of you. In John 4:39, I'll show you this. It says that after this, many Samaritans from the village, they believed in Jesus because of who? The woman who said, he told me everything I ever did. And when they came out to see him, they begged him to stay in their village, and so Jesus stayed a few more days, long enough for many more to hear his message. Here's the deal. Who did God use? He used a regular, ordinary, broken person who had an encounter with Jesus, was changed by Jesus. He used a person just like me and just like you to be an influencer in someone else's life. In a season where man, I don't know where you are in this, but there was a season where I didn't have a platform, and I'm grateful for it, but I was sitting at a table the other day with my buddy Seth, and this is Seth, and if you don't know Seth, he's our church planting resident, and what that means is he's in-house and serving with us so that we can do in another city what we've done here in Boulder, and let's start another church and engage the city and love and serve people well. And so Seth is here now, and this is a picture of him when he first moved to Boulder with his little U-Haul truck. And if you would have told me 5 or 6 or 8 years ago, however long ago it was that I met Seth, that he'd be moving to Boulder to be a part of City Church and to be our first church planting resident, man, I would have been blown away, because I would have never thought that God could have used my influence to get Seth to where he is today. But I was sitting at a table the other day with Seth, and as he was telling someone his story, the words came out of his mouth. He said, God used Drake too, and he kept going. And I kind of stopped in the back of my mind, and I was like, what? Like, he did? Like, I didn't realize that God had used me to be a part of Seth's story. And so then I called him later, and I said, hey, man, listen, like, I'm not trying to, like, toot my own horn, but I'm just curious, like, what was it, like how did God use me to influence you to where you are today? And here's what Seth said, and I loved this. He said, man, you were just consistently present. Like, you didn't have it all figured out. You weren't perfect. You were still struggling. At the time, I was really young. I didn't have a big platform by any means, but he said, man, we lived a lot of life together, and you made a long-term investment. And what Seth said is, as we lived life together, I saw something in you that I didn't have. He said, you placed value on me, and when you did that, it made me lean in to what you had to say. He said, you gained influence in my life because you were so consistent in being there. And Seth said, when I realized that everything that was working in and through you was God, it made me want that in my life. And when I heard him say that, I was like, man, I had no idea that God used just a consistent presence to influence you in a direction that puts you here today. And I want you to know, listen to me, you are an influencer. And you have no idea how one conversation, one word of encouragement, or one expression of love might change someone's life. I'm going to invite Daniel to come, and as I prepare to close, I just want to invite you to reflect on a few things, okay? Did you know that when you read the book of Acts, which is about the early church, that 39 out of the 40 different miracles that you and I see in the book of Acts happen outside of the church? You know what that tells me? Is that you are a part of a miracle waiting to happen. So what that means in this season when we're in isolation and breakdown, that when you listen to someone who is hurting and you love them instead of judge them, God might be doing something in their hearts. When you extend some encouragement in the middle of a week, or you check in on a friend or a coworker or a family member, that investment might go further than you ever thought it could. When you get online and you share something from City Church, or you repost something happening, a sermon clip or an event happening, you never know how God might use that little moment to touch someone else's life. You never know, just by the way you carry yourself, just by your disposition, how God is using that to separate a gap of what people see in you and what they don't have. Hear me, guys. God has created you to influence others. And if you're a follower of Jesus, God has created you to influence others to know Jesus, that we exist to help people find their way to God from where they are. You are an influencer. And so maybe you're a Jesus follower as we've been having this conversation, and maybe you're in the moment like me and you're like, man, I don't want to waste this time, and I don't want to waste this season. I want to be more influential. Can I challenge you? I've got a couple of things I want to challenge you with this week. The first one is this. Starting tomorrow, on Monday, I want to invite you into a 5-day fast. Now, fasting is very simply giving up what we love for what we love even more. And the purpose is to give up those things so we can focus more time and energy and prayer and engagement in what God is doing right in front of us. And so you can pick your fast. You could fast from media. You could fast from screen time. You could pick a meal in the middle of the day. You could fast from coffee. You could fast from whatever you want, as long as it's a challenge, okay? If you don't like broccoli, don't fast from broccoli. That doesn't count. But you pick your fast over the next 5 days. And during that fast, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I want you to personally, you and me together, we're going to do it together, personally invite 3 people this week to join you online at City Church for Easter. In addition to that invitation, man, I want you to go on Facebook. I want you to grab the event for Easter online. I want you to click that you're going. And I want you to use that tab so you can invite people and share it so people can see it. I want you to go on Instagram and like the post about Easter and share it to your story. Leverage everything in front of you because you have no idea what one post, one text, one word of encouragement, one invitation might do in the life of someone else. And my prayer is that right now, as you and I engage in this conversation, that we couldn't check out from this service. We couldn't check out from this engagement online without feeling the burden to reach out to someone right now. My prayer right now is that God is putting those names on your heart and mind as we pray and reflect today. And my prayer this week as we fast and we pray and we engage is that we would invite God, interrupt my day. Man, I'm ready. Help me to listen to you and to love the people right in front of me, to forget about any efforts of platform, whether it makes me feel puffed up or it makes me feel like I'm not good enough, but rather help me to love the person right in front of me, even if that's digitally. And maybe, friends, you're like Lauren today. And you'd feel like, you know what, there's an open door in front of you when it comes to this relationship with God thing, and you know it's there, but you also know you don't have to walk through it. But at the same time, there's something going on in your heart and mind that there might be something to this Jesus thing. Man, can I just tell you that God loves you and he sent Jesus so that you could know him relationally as a father? You're not invited into religious experience and duties and a heavy weight. You're invited into a relationship with a loving God who sent his son to give his life for you in your place, for your sin, to be buried and to rise again, to give any of us who would trust in him new life. And maybe you're looking at your story today and you would say, man, I can see God using all these different influences to point me in this direction. Maybe it's the message today, or maybe it's a song you heard recently, or maybe it's a friend that's been investing in you, or maybe there's a series of influences in your life that have put you at the place that you are today where you would say, Drake, I'm ready. I'm ready to follow Jesus. I want to give Jesus my life. And maybe as you reflect on and think about that, you're like, Drake, I don't know, man. I'm not good enough, and my life is not together, and I don't know if I'm ready. Can I just encourage you? When you call on the name of Jesus, he hears you. He forgives you. And he makes you new. And so in your own heart and mind today, you could pray just like this with me and say, Jesus, I believe in you. I know I'm broken. I know I'm not perfect. But I believe you died for me. I believe you rose again to give me new life and to invite me into the family of God. And today, I'm saying yes to that invitation. Jesus, I give you my life. And listen, if you prayed that prayer, I want to encourage you, take some time. Use that digital connection card and let us know so we can walk alongside you, because this is not a decision that happens in a moment. This is a journey that you're invited into. We want to walk alongside you. If you're a follower of Jesus, we can pray for you in any way. And use that connection card. Let us know how we can help you take next steps. And I can't wait to hear the stories of the small investments of influence this week that result in lives changed. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We'll see you later.
Hey, guys. Thank you so much for joining. We would love to help you take next steps. Click those action buttons and we'll be sure and follow up with you.